we have no issues with working until late. I will like to believe that you're happy to stick around as we go along. So just give us a moment whilst we connect with China and also getting the PowerPoints ready. Yeah, kunema steps. Kunema steps ngale. Okay, here we are. For those who just joined, my name, I already said that my name is Ank Chabalala. I'm the Director of Indigenous Knowledge-Based Technology Innovation of the Department of Science and Innovation, the National Office. Part of my responsibility is to provide both policy and strategic direction to the country in terms of how we run research, development, and innovation, which is related to indigenous knowledge systems in this country. Well, again, welcome to this session. We are already more than 15 minutes to 20 minutes late, but I said that this is our room, so I confirmed with the organizers that this is our room. We won't be kicked out. So don't worry about time. We'll make sure that every session that is allocated a certain amount of time is actually afforded that amount of time. And if we have lunch in between, of course we'll have lunch in between, so don't worry, there'll be sufficient food for all. Well, this session, or whatever will be happening in this room, will have three streams. The first stream that will happen now for the next 45 minutes or so will be looking into the Agenda 2063, but at the same time within the context of the role of African natural medicines within whether it's a national or a continental health system. So the conversations that we'll be having will be geared towards what is it that we can do as Africans? Because as you heard from the plenary, when COVID hit, everyone just looked at us and said, you sort yourselves out. So we need to have these conversations about how to sort ourselves out. Part of the rules to the panel, but also coming, inviting you who are sitting here, is that we shouldn't make this session as a place to complain, but a place to come up with solutions. We have complained enough, so it's time for us to come up with solutions. And there's no elder, there's no youth, everyone must contribute, especially the students, wherein interfacing of ancient knowledge systems and emerging sciences are happening. So I'm not Professor Mohanedi, she was supposed to coordinate this session. So we'll have three speakers, and of course they will introduce themselves. We have Professor Ngeba Galeni from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and also the Africa Health Research Institute. He will introduce himself, but he's the current chair of the African Natural Medicines Platform of the Department of Science and Innovation. And of course, we've got we affectionately call it Dr. O, Dr. Nompumulela Obokwa from the Innovation Hub Management Company. They actually handle aspects of enterprise development and commercialization when it comes to indigenous knowledge systems work that we do. Online, we will receive Professor Tang, Minke Tang, from Beijing University of Chinese Medicine. He's one of the collaborators, long-term collaborators between the Department of Science and Innovation and the Ministry of Science and Technology in China. So they are sorting him out, so he'll be joining us. So what we'll do to the panel, as I said, you'll be afforded all the time that you need. Well, we have 45 minutes. So I guess the two of you who are here, including Prof. Tang, you have some PowerPoints that you'll share with us, but I'll have a few questions. I'll pose a few questions from myself, at least maybe one question for each of you, but then invite some questions from the floor, because it's not even about us as government, it's really about those that are invited here. So what I will do is that we'll start then maybe with Prof. Galeni to introduce himself. Maybe you can just introduce yourself briefly as to what is it that you do. Then you'll go ahead and do the presentation. Maybe whilst we're doing that, I'll also ask Dr. O to just briefly introduce herself. Then you can go ahead with the presentation. Let's do it in that order. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you, Chair, and it's almost good day. It's no longer in the morning. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, colleagues. I am a researcher on African traditional medicine. I know the Chair likes natural products. This is work started in the year 2000, the medical school, when we were interested at the time in building relationships between traditional healers and our medical students for training purposes. But it led to me now being a full-time researcher on African traditional medicine. Various aspects of, there's the philosophical work, there's policy, but there's also the products that we work on. And so that will be my presentation to you today, just to share a few concepts that we're working on at this stage. The work we do is embedded on our relationship with the traditional health practitioners. We don't go looking for them. We've had a good relationship that we've built over the number of years. And of course, once they bring the products to us, then we establish the concepts and do the work as we go. Can you share the slides? And so, in the context of the meeting, I felt that I will share the work we're doing around fighting the pandemics that are confronting us. And of course, there's a few major pandemics that face South Africa. According to Stats SA, there's about 8.5 million South Africans who are living with HIV as of now. The country has experienced more than 4 million COVID infections, of course, the number of deaths. It was estimated that of the 4.5 million people between the ages of 20 to 79 with diabetes, 52% of those were undiagnosed. It means the number can be more in terms of the context of diabetes and the other cardiovascular conditions. And these pandemics have partners in crime or terrible twins. We know that HIV and TB are those twins, and of course TB becomes the leading cause of death. And we have a high prevalence of NCDs and of obesity, diabetes, and related conditions. This might be a slide that's being repeated a lot, but I'll share that from us in terms of COVID. We learned the fact that colonialism was meant to entrench our dependency on the West. So when it hit us, we were not prepared to have our own machine guns to fight. We looked to the West to develop drugs, to develop vaccines for us. And when the chips were down, the West looks after its own citizens. And that's been the experience we found. And we also learned that solutions do not have to lie only on big pharma. We have to bring all potential solutions to the table for scientific investigation and evaluation. And this is where we come in terms of where the indigenous knowledge of healing. But this approach to us is a paradigm shift, in a sense. Traditional medicine, in a way, goes against the conventional wisdom, because we're starting not looking for new active pharmaceutical ingredients, but we're starting with a product that the healer has a history of use, the plants have a history of use, but we do need to know how do they work, in a sense. The Indians coined what is called reverse pharmacology. I don't know if I can say that in my language. They probably think I'm a witch if I use reverse, But the first concept I want to share with you briefly is a product we call Product Ngabinde, from a herbalist from Dundee that we work with. It's a claim for HIV cure. And we had already collected some laboratory data from some of his patients, which were clearly demonstrating the viral load is dropping, and also clearly demonstrating that the CD4 is rising. Not a clinical trial, but just data that points us into one direction. And of course, we've worked with chemists and botanists to establish, and we can see that there are molecules here that are active. But what was amazing us is that still working with a crude extract. You can see on the slide here that you're comparing with an active antiretroviral efavirenz, and clearly it's still a crude extract. This is a pure compound, but you can see that the potency of the crude is almost equivalent to that. Now we postulate that if we were to further purify this, maybe the activity would go to even picogram quantities. And of course, we've looked at PMBCs, and we can also see that this is very potent in terms of its selectivity index, comparing that to that of AZT. One thing we were interested in, you can't bring, what do you bring a new antiretroviral product onto the market when there are already standardized ones? We knew that HIV antiretrovirals at the moment do not destroy the latent HIV that is in the blood, in the tissues. And so we were looking at that model, and we can see that with this model, we can actually reverse latent HIV. We've done this also on a model of patients who are virally suppressed. We've got their bloods, look at their reservoirs, and we can still see that we can reverse that. So we have, in a sense, a package now for a cure for HIV. This is ready now for a phase 1 clinical trial. We've done some animal work, and based on that, we'll probably then go to phase 2 studies. Of course, during COVID, there was an interest in saying, are there products? We were encouraged by the Department of Science and Innovation, let's look at products that can have a contribution in the fight. And so we have a model that we're using that we can test. What we can show here, we're using an antibody as a positive control. We can see that we have a single plant that's effective. We're also a product of combination of plants that is active as possible. This is very promising to us to take this work forward. There's another pandemic of diabetes that faces us. This is a work on a kind of model of a type 1, but we also have another model of OB for obese late onset diabetes. And we can see that we're using the standard drugs that are in the market, and we can see that our extracts are not as badly performing compared to these, which is quite useful to us to take forward. What we also established with the mouse model is that these are very much also renal protective. One of the things with diabetes later is that it destroys your kidneys, and this is very renal protective, which is very useful to us. We've had a case of a patient being brought to us by a GP, for that matter. We've had about 4 of these cases, but this is Kaposi. We don't have a model for Kaposi. What the patient was doing, they've got a medical aid, so they go to a GP, the doctor who looks after them, who gives them treatment. But the response is not what the doctor was expecting, and suddenly asks them, what are you taking? What's happening here? And the patient discloses that, no, I'm not taking your medication. I'm actually taking one from my herbalist, Ubaba Komal. May his soul rest in peace. We don't have a model for Kaposi in our group, so we sent a student to University of Florida to do the work there. Now, what happens with the Kaposi? The virus injects its DNA into the human genome. The cells are transformed, and they replicate. When you are treating the tumor, you're not treating the causative agent because it's dormant. But what the product is doing, you can see here, is that it's not only destroying the cell, but it's also forcing the DNA particles to be released. What is unique, we still have $1 million question for us. What we could establish with PCR, we can establish that this is actually viral genome. It's not human genome. So the cells are destroyed, but the viral genome is left. Now you can attack that with antiretrovirals much more directly. Now you can cure the cause and the disease and the effect together. That's $1 million question if I find a postdoc or PhD to ask for us. How does this medicine distinguish from the human genome and that of the viral genome? Very interesting work to do. Of course, we need to take this work to clinical trials. In South Africa, we don't have hospitals of traditional medicine, so we work with modern health practitioners, which fosters, in a sense, integrative research. But we're working with the traditional healers because these are the products they know very well. It also fosters interprofessional education. And I must say that it's also has a potential for the contributing to the sector of agriculture, because you can now take these things to clinical trial phases, harvesting in the wild and commercializing them. So the second work that we do, we're collaborating with the School of Agriculture at the university and the Agricultural Research Council to now to do the cult. Of course, this is not a spinach and cabbage. These are plants. You need to establish that what is grown has the same equivalent to what is in the wild. So that's what we're doing. Just to acknowledge, we get funded by various parties in this work, but just to say there's a student, Nontlantla, she's dark there. She was in Florida doing work thanks to Prof. Rene, who was hosting her. This is Ubabungabinde and his son and other colleagues that we work with. We collaborate around across the board. And of course, we have students who are the real ones doing the cutting edge science, working closely with our traditional healers. For some reason, we have more females than guys, I don't know, but they are very clever. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that enlivening science that you're doing at UKZN. I wanted to just make a small change, Doc. I'm told that Professor Tang is now online, and it's 6 o'clock in China, so I think it would be good that we allow him to tune in case we also lose him, because these technologies will never know. So the operator, are you able to beam in Professor Tang? There is Professor Tang. Welcome, sir, to this session, which looks into the role, even though we said it is the role of African medicines and indigenous knowledge systems within the context of Agenda 2063, South Africa is a long life friend of China, and I trust that you'll be able to share from the Chinese perspective what it is that you're doing, but maybe also give us some advice as Africans in terms of what is it that we need to do with our own medicines, but also food. We often say that let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. So Prof, you may introduce yourself and then go ahead and do your presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, Professor Chabalala. I think this opportunity is very precious for me. Instead of introduce the research benchwork in my laboratory, today I'm gonna very briefly introduce Chinese medicine, what we did in China. And as I mentioned several times, I think the Chinese medicine, both the Chinese medicine and African medicine, South African medicine, both has long history. So by this mutual communicated opportunity, we can learn from each other. So let me briefly introduce what we did in China. Let's say we do have great changes from the past. 1,000 years ago, you can see our Chinese medicine pharmacy, they dispense their materials by using very traditional way. But today, when you visit China, you visit the Chinese medicine hospital, you can see the pharmacy dispenser already modernized. So there are a lot of changes. So let me introduce from several aspects. First, in China, the government emphasized to build high quality and efficient traditional medicine service system. On my right side, you can see when the new country established back to 1949, we only have 4 Chinese medicine hospital at that time. And in 2019, we have Chinese medicine hospital 4,400. When I say 4,000, that means the big hospital, not the clinics. not a clinic. And then when you count the clinic, Chinese medicine clinic, currently almost every village, they have traditional Chinese medicine clinic. So approximately we have 600,000 Chinese medicine clinic around the country. So this kind of high quality, efficient service network is very important for the modernization of Chinese medicine. And also, we emphasize to improve the quality and ability of the Chinese medicine service. We focus on the unique advantages, for example, disease prevention and rehabilitation. And also, in recent years, we emphasize to improve the ability to participate in prevention and the treatment for emerging infection disease like COVID. And also at the same time, the traditional Chinese medicine, they integrate Western medicine technologies and knowledge into their system, because in some acute conditions, they're gonna use some Western approach to combine with traditional medicine. So overall, you want to improve your service quality and ability for traditional medicine. And at the same time, the Chinese government, they emphasize high quality traditional medicine education system to build up. When you visit China, you can see almost every province, they have their own Chinese medicine university. In each university, you have more than 10,000 students at this moment. I mean, each Chinese medicine university, they have more than 10,000 students enrolled. And not only for the traditional Chinese medicine university, even for the Western, the conventional medical university, it is mandatory. They integrate some Chinese medicine courses into their conventional medicine education system. So you can see from the education perspective, the whole country integrated Western and Chinese medicine education. And also regarding the innovation, the research, the Chinese government, they build up high-level Chinese medicine technology developing platform. And currently in this country, we have more than 1,000 of high-level research lab or centers. They focus on Chinese medicine research. When I say Chinese medicine research, like Chinese medicine pharmacy, drugs, and also food supplement, as Professor Chabalala mentioned. And also the Chinese government, they set up thousands of state key lab directly supported by the central government. And most university, they set up these research institutions or colleges or department responsible for the outcomings transfer to industrialize. So this, I think this emphasize high-level traditional medicine scientific research is very important. So the whole system is much more comprehensive. And also the government emphasize high-quality development of traditional Chinese medicine industry. You can see from my right side, currently in China, we have more than 4,500 Chinese medicine manufacturer. They produce tablets, produce pills, capsule. They produce even injection of Chinese medicine. And also they produce food supplement. The Chinese government, they set up very strict rules and honorary inspections to the industry. You can see from the January 2021 to October 21, more than 13,000 times safety inspection was conducted by the Chinese government. So by having these 5 slides, I very briefly introduced what we did in China about Chinese medicine. I hope this information will be useful to our South African friends. And also, I pretty much look forward to learn from our traditional South African medicine. It has more than 1,000 years history, lots of knowledge, know-how, lots of things we wish to learn from your side. Thank you very much. This is my contact information. I am a full professor of pharmacology. Specifically, I'm working on neuroscience, neuropharmacology. My lab using the cutting-edge technologies, pharmacological techniques to find some recipes, formulas, active ingredients to tackle the neurodegeneration disease. My university is Beijing University of Chinese Medicine. As I mentioned, in China, we have every province have their Chinese medicine university. Totally, we have more than 30 Chinese medicine universities or college in China. And the Beijing University of Chinese Medicine is the only one in the country level, which administrated directly by the Ministry of Education of China. And this is the exclusive university under this management. Again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleague, expert. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dang, for really showing us how the Chinese government's dedication and seriousness in investing not only on the medicine itself, but also on the system, on the individual, on the elders and the students, but then building a healthcare service based on this, building curriculum, coming up with curriculum and building universities, not ending up there, but coming up with all these farms and manufacturing facilities that bring up these medicines, not only tablets, but injectables that end up in the hospitals and the clinics, dispensed by Chinese medicines doctors. This is really highly commendable, and I think we've got a lot to learn. And I must say that we sent one of our own students. I don't know if I can see properly. Is that Luki here at the back? Luki, you want to just stand? Young Luki is studying Chinese medicine at the Beijing University of Chinese Medicine, so that he learns from what the Chinese are doing and then come back home and help us develop our own. So thank you so much, Luki. So our third speaker will be Dr. Nompumelelo Oboko. As I said, she's from the Innovation Hub, and she will demonstrate how we are also getting inspired to move from research to enterprise development to commercialization and manufacturing. We're not at the levels of China, India, Japan, Korea, but we're moving towards that. The time is yours.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Sanbonani, Ninjani. We are in Durban, so we are using Zulu.
Yeah.
So good afternoon once more, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nompumelelo Oboko. I'm the General Manager at the Innovation Hub. But prior to that, I worked for the CIPC, which is the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, where I headed the IP division there, looking at how we can protect intellectual property. And I'm privileged to be back. I was the CEO of Africa Bio from 2012 to 2015. So yeah, I'm happy to be back at home. So my presentation really will be looking at how, just looking at the theme for this particular session, IKS-based innovation in health and food security, the case of the Innovation Hub's contribution to the AU Agenda 2063. So how are we relevant in terms of delivering on the aspirations of the AU Agenda 2063? There we are. In terms of building the Africa we want, as we all know, there are 7 aspirations, but I'm going to zoom in into aspiration 1, which is much more relevant to this particular convention and what we are set out to do within the IKS stream. So here, some of the goals, they really talk about a high standard of living being achieved to ensure there's high quality of life and well-being for all, an education and skills revolution, emphasizing the role of science and technology. And most importantly, as we are talking about health and food security, we want to ensure that we have healthy and well-nourished citizens in Africa, transformed economies and jobs, modern agriculture. Agriculture is important. We are talking about food as well. And how can we use and modernize our agriculture for increased productivity, but also to ensure that our small-scale farmers, they are equipped with the necessary tools to ensure that when there's climate problems, as we see with the climate change, they can be able to be resilient. So hence, the theme of this whole conference is about how do we become resilient as Africa. And most importantly, as I indicated with climate change, we want to ensure that we use our natural resources. We are rich as a country in terms of our biodiversity, and we want to ensure that we are use it and promote environmentally sustainable climate and resilient economies and communities. So the case of the Innovation Hub, how do we fit in? We are just at the provincial level. Our mandate and purpose is really starting at 1999 when the Innovation Hub was established. It is an internationally recognized science and technology park, and really to support sustainable development. That's why I've underlined, as we've seen in the previous slide with the AU 63, we are also promoting sustainable development. We want to improve the competitiveness of the Gauteng province and improve and promote economic growth. Our vision really is to be a model innovation agency, fostering economic development and competitiveness in the Gauteng city region. And our mandate, as stipulated there, is to be an innovation agency that conceptualize and implement innovative programs for the Gauteng province. And yes, we are in the Gauteng province, but our footprint is throughout the country, and we collaborate with quite a number of stakeholders within South Africa as well as outside. And we want to ensure that there's a full development and operation of the Science and Technology Park with our key focus areas, the bioeconomy, the green economy, and the digital economy. As we know now with the 4th Industrial Revolution, there's a convergence of the bio, the physical, and the cyber. So all of these are technologies and innovations that are going to equip us as South Africa, as Africa, to be really, to transform our economies and to be the global powerhouse for the future, as stipulated in the AU 2063. Having said that, now we're zooming in into the bioeconomy. This is the unit that I'm heading, and I'm privileged to be joined by my colleagues, the General Manager for ICASI Lab, as well as Dr. Puti, who are also helping us to manage our IKS programs. So this is the building that was established in 2012 in collaboration with Egoli Bio. At that time, it was a biotech incubator, the DTIC, the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and the Gauteng Department of Economic Development. So really, this was for the implementation, to support the implementation of the Gauteng Biotechnology Strategy of 2009, then also the Gauteng Innovation and Knowledge Economy Strategy, which we call JICE 2012. And when you look at our value proposition as the bioeconomy, we provide holistic business development support for startups in the health, specifically biopharmaceuticals, medical devices and diagnostics, indigenous knowledge-based nutraceuticals, cosmeceuticals, cosmetics as well. And in the agriculture, we're focusing on agricultural biotechnology, agro and food processing, the bioprocessing, as well as smart agriculture. And I would like to invite you all to come to our exhibition stand. We have some of our companies that are exhibiting there. You will see some of the smart agri technologies that we are supporting, and also on industrial biotech sectors. So we want to foster and catalyze the development and commercialization of bio-innovations. So at the end of the day, I think we want to mainstream IKS-based innovations. And with the help of the DSI, I would like to now showcase the work that we are doing. This is just the conference as well as the graduation of 56 IKS holders who participated in a 12-month program through our support and collaboration with DSI. We have what we called a Coach Lab IKS Bio-Entrepreneurship Program. And after graduation, we are able to take them through, business plan development. They're able to pitch and highlight and showcase some of the innovations that are coming through their pipeline. And we are also using them then to feed into our incubation program. And we're targeting SMMEs, scientists in the universities, as our prof has indicated, from UKZN, and many quite number of universities that are doing R&D, extensive R&D, but our work now, our mandate, is to really develop them as business people. And IKS holders are very important in that whole program. So the theme really is to transform the innovation ecosystem to make it speak to Pan-African realities through IKS. So as you can see, the alignment again to the AU 2063. So after that 12-month program as indicated, now they are ready to be incubated within the Innovation Hub. We have a program within the Bioscience Park that does incubation. It can be for 1 year, 3 years, depending on the level of the technology. So they're able to access high-quality infrastructure in terms of office space at reduced rates. They're getting also manufacturing and also laboratory space where they can do their work, also at subsidized rates. They get access to internet, boardrooms, especially if they have to engage with other stakeholders and clients. We've got conferencing facilities for them to meet with prospective clients. And I think most importantly, as part of our offerings, is that they access advisory and skills development services, especially in the area of IP management. When they come in, there are experts that look at their profile of their businesses and they identify what kind of IP is there. Is there a patent? Is there a trademark? Is there design? And then, of course, with copyright, as we know, then they'll have automatic protection. So we work closely with NIPMO and the CIPC as the office that does the IP registration. And we also look at the legal aspect in terms of contracts. They get business and advisory support through our mentors, business case development, and training and product development. So we also work with CSAR in terms of expertise with product development. And key to us is access to markets, because yes, you've done your research, you have a product, how do you then access the markets? So here, that is where we engage and ensure that there are market linkages that we do, and also through these kind of exhibitions, they come and they display what they have been doing, some of the innovations, and again, access to funding. I think most of the entrepreneurs can tell you that this is another aspect which they need. So we also facilitate that. We are not a funder, so we work with TIA very closely, and our colleagues are here to also unpack how they're assisting, but also with IDC as well as DTIC as well as DSI. So we can see all these government agencies, the government departments also working together to ensure that we have a streamlined process to fund and support our entrepreneurs. And within the biopark, this is really the spread, just to indicate, we have, as indicated, the health, agriculture, as well as industrial sectors. As you can see, the health, the companies with technologies or innovation in the health sector is 72%. So a third of those companies are incubated with us. And then for agriculture, it's 23%. My spectacles are failing me, I don't know. And 5% there for the industrials. And then when you zoom in into the subsectors, then within health, you can see the big chunk, well, most of the companies are in the nutraceuticals and cosmeceuticals, which shows that we have really elevated and we are serious about taking IKS agenda to another level. And for the medical devices and diagnostics, you can see there's 31% and another 17% looking at complementary medicine, your biopharmaceuticals. And in agriculture, agro-processing, bioprocessing, as well as smart agriculture. So we are growing as the innovation hub. Currently, we have over 76 companies that are incubated, some physically within the innovation hub and others virtually, but they're getting maximum support. So I thought perhaps just to showcase some of the innovations to achieve food and health security. As you can see, we have PreJAP, and they are producing an immune-enhancing complementary medicine developed from indigenous knowledge. We've got Makamisa. They're producing flavoring condiments from natural ingredients. The founder is also an alumni of the IKS Coach Lab Bioentrepreneurship Training Program. Now he has been incubated with us. GreenX is also a registered company with the CIPC. They have a patented extraction technology providing a concentrate, a moringa liquid concentrate, which is rich in nutritional and health herbal compounds. And Masepula, the products there, they're using medicinal plants to produce medicine for the treatment of various ailments. So if you go to their website, you can see even the different trees, the different plants that they're using, to extract these active ingredients for the, for diabetes, gangrene, ulcers, epilepsy. So quite a number of ailments that they are looking at to assist with from that perspective. And we've got a very exciting now project that we have embarked on. It will be ready by 2023 for occupation, and we'll be having a session where we'll unpack further. This is the Biopark Phase 3. So we're looking now at how do these companies now grow. They want bigger space, they want facilities where they can manufacture in bulk. So this is the Biopark Phase 3 building that is under construction. And really our value proposition, or we envisage the creation of a base from which there's access to state-of-the-art, world-class equipment, facilities for co-working space, as well as promoting resource sharing. But sharing of knowledge is key for us, an exchange of ideas. We are in an innovation ecosystem. We want to see cross-fertilization and co-innovation so that there's no competition, but we can all work collaboratively to enhance our economic development. And we want to also look at thought leadership, these kind of engagements where we can share some of the trends, what is happening globally, locally, and also to provide bio-business intelligence, because for our companies, it is important that they understand where are the markets, what is needed, what is urgent, because sometimes they go with a product, but they've not done any market analysis or market research. We want to promote innovation on a commercial level, and here I want to emphasize, we want to build IKS industrialists. We want to foster a communication and collaboration among key stakeholders, key players in the bioeconomy ecosystem, and attract domestic as well as regional and global companies. So these are the kind of forums where we want to participate and ensure that we build a very holistic and a relevant innovation ecosystem that is IKS based. So with that, I would like to thank really our partners because without them really we will not be able to achieve what we have done. Currently, we've got 76 companies as indicated, but we're provided assistance financially, technically, through the Department of Science and Innovation, and Dr. Chabalala has been very much instrumental as the champion really for IKS in the country, and I think in the region as well. So I think it deserves really a round of applause for the work that he has done over the years. And thank you, Siyabonga. And the DTIC, of course, the Department of Small Business Development, the Gauteng Province, IDC, CSIR. I've seen some of the colleagues, TIA, NIPMO, SIDA, and WIPO, because from an intellectual property point of view as well, We want to elevate the status of our innovators, our AKS holders. There are discussions that are taking place also at WIPO, negotiating some of these instruments, and then of course Emory University. So thank you very much. That is what I wanted to share in terms of the work that we are doing to support the AU agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. O. We really appreciate what you're doing and the vision that you have in terms of us just moving away from just doing research, but starting to look into enterprise development and manufacturing, including commercialization and the utilization of these things, not only here at home, but throughout the entire continent and the world. I don't want to be selfish. As I said, this is our room. Lunch will be at 1 o'clock. So I would like us to then have a conversation up to maybe 5 to 1 so that you have an opportunity to go down for lunch. But also, if you're coming back, for you to be back here at least at 5 minutes to 2. So I'll open the conversation. I have my own questions. I would like to recognize your hands if you have hands. Or whilst you, okay, I see a sister over there, another sister over there. Anyone else at the back? Should we start with these two? Please go ahead. And yeah, you need to walk to the mic. And please make sure that you also, mention who you're directing your question to, or even to everybody. To all the 3 speakers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm Dumi. I'm doing my master's in bioprocess engineering, and I'm also within like the indigenous plant space and indigenous bioproducts space. So I have questions for all 3 panelists. And is Prof. Tang still with us?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to ask all the questions and then I'll leave. So for Prof. Tang, my question is, what is the model for someone who wants to access traditional medicines in China? Like, what's their process, and do they have to go through a different doctor, or can they go to the Western medicines doctor and they get a prescription from there? And then the second one is for Dr. Galeni, or Prof. Galeni, is what does the traditional health practitioner gain from working with your institute? And from what Prof. Tang will say, are there any similarities or differences in terms of the model for the South African context for people who want to access traditional medicines? And then lastly, it's for Dr. Oboko. What is a sustainable model which ensures value to the indigenous knowledge holders, sustainably so? Because scientists are, furthering their studies or getting, their accolades, and SMMEs are getting more money. So how can we ensure that the indigenous knowledge holders are adequately compensated? Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe let's take the second round of questions and then responses, whilst everyone else is still thinking about their own questions.
Good morning. My name is Leanne Niekerk, and I'm a PhD student in biotechnology from the University of the Western Cape. And I just want to firstly address that, please excuse my lack of knowledge in medicinal plants, as I'm dealing with plant nutrient or plant nutrition. I just had a question for Professor Tang and Professor Moganedi, sorry. So I know African traditional medication and Chinese medication, right, or traditional medication, was mainly conducted on our genetic pool and their genetic pool. Was there any studies done with like the global genetic pools, like whether the medication is still effective, or what's the degree of effectiveness in like for people that want to use it that's in Europe or from European descent or American descent?
Thank you so much. There you are. Prof, we'll start with yourself. It's two questions for you. One is, how do people in China get access to Chinese medicines in terms of, prescriptions? And the second question is, well, you have done research, especially in terms of clinical trials, if I understand our sister here, that you do clinical trials on the Chinese people, but have you done clinical trials on other nations, like maybe African people or Europeans or people with African genetic pool? That's your two questions, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. So regarding the first question, let's say for the general public, when they have some uncomfortable conditions, because most of the general public, they already have some kind of knowledge and a background about Chinese medicine. So first of all, they're going to decide that they want to see a Chinese medicine doctor or they want to see a Western medicine doctor. That is their decision. This is first. Secondly, when they see a doctor, it doesn't matter Chinese medicine doctor or Western medicine doctor, because the doctors, they all educated both Chinese medicine and Western medicine. They're gonna talk to you, discuss with you. Your condition is better to use Chinese medicine, or your condition is better for conventional Western medicine. So they're gonna discuss with you. Generally speaking, for acute conditions, they're gonna prefer or recommend a conventional medicine. But for chronic, especially for prevention and for rehabilitation, the doctors, they're gonna recommend Chinese medicine. So it's a two-way. The patient and the doctors, they're gonna discuss, but the doctors, they're gonna make very professional suggestions based on their knowledge to the patient. And the second question is about the clinical trial. Because most of the Chinese medicine, the information about this, the efficacy and the treatment and the disease come from thousand accumulation of the clinical experience. But the modern scientists, we always want to double check with the modern techniques and clinical trial. And we did a lot of Chinese people clinical trial. And especially in recent decades, we did several clinical trial in Caucasian people, like in United States and in several other countries. But at this moment, I'm not sure if we have this data from African countries. I'm not sure.
Thank you so much, Prof. I guess you got your answers there, and then I'll pass it on, Prof. Taleni, Prof. Oboko, for your questions.
In the first question is, what's in it for the healers coming forward? I'm going to use the Zulu expression. Hopefully, you might understand. Healers treat patients who come to them. But in cases of like epidemics, pandemics, or they might have what is called indugwezizwe. They say this medicine, I don't think it's just useful for my patients alone. I would want it to reach more. In which case, through the regulatory framework in South Africa, you're going to need to do some scientific work and clinical trials for it to be registered and widely marketed. So we become the bridge, in a sense, for healers to get to that market in that case. So that's what's in it for them. And of course, as you are here, Innovation Hub then trains on entrepreneurship and things as that they can be successfully commercialize their innovations. But ours is to provide the evidence, the basis for if the healer is claiming I'm using this to cure HIV, we do the research to show that it is actually doing exactly that. So the claim, by the time it gets to SAPRA, it's backed by science to that effect. So that's what's in it for them. And then clinical trials are very expensive, Sisi. I think big pharma probably have a capacity to do multi-country, multi-center clinical trials. We don't have such budgets for now. I think as this industry in Africa grows, we might have capacity to do such studies in the future. Thanks.
No, thanks for the question. It's about really a sustainable model and what's in it. How are the IKS holders compensated? So I think when you look at the presentation and the mandate of the Innovation Hub, we want to really train them to be the entrepreneurs going forward. So that is one aspect. So some of the IKS holders, they participate in our Coach Lab program, where we give them a 12-month training on how to be a business person. Yes, there are some who want to be just healers. There are some who want to take it a notch further and become, entrepreneurs. And then there are some who are even wanting, markets outside the country. So we're working with all of those to ensure that, we meet their needs and we give them maximum support in terms of business development. As Prof has indicated, they'll do the research and development, and then we will then take it forward. It's just the same with the, scientists. Scientists, sometimes they want to be in the lab, they finish there, but we want to say, at the end of the day, as a country, from the investment that has been made in R&D, we want to see tangible products, and that is what innovation is all about. Because you can do your research, write nice papers, be well known out there, but at the end of the day, what does it mean from a socio-economic development? So we want to grow our IKS holders to be the IKS, we're talking about black industrialists now. So we want to also to, go that way. And when you look at compensation, well, that is one part of it. But if at all they don't want to participate, and the researchers, they see that there's value in taking this innovation further for commercialization, at the national level through the Department of Environmental Affairs, Forestry and Fisheries, I think it's DEF, there is what is called NEMBA, which is the National Environmental Management Biodiversity Act that talks to access and benefit sharing. So as a researcher, you'll go work with the community. You've identified a certain plant where you want to extract certain active ingredients. There is what is called core working or core innovation. We work closely with them, but when it comes to commercialization, you'll then fill a form through the department where you'll indicate what aspects of that plant you'll be taking for research and what aspect you'll be taking for commercialization. So for commercialization, there will be certain stipulation in terms of royalties, how much then goes to that community to develop them. I think you've had a case now with the rooibos, the Khoisan, how they've been able to also get some money, from some of these activities. It has taken a very long time, but through the work, I think, from the Department of Science and Innovation, as well as some of the government agencies, we've been able then, to make some headways to ensure that there is protection of our indigenous knowledge, our biodiversity, and also access and benefit sharing. And I think the last one, on intellectual property as well, they are the IKS holders, so it's important that they also own the intellectual property. And I think through the Department of Science and Innovation, there's now a big repository on all this work, and that the IKS holders have been able to share some of that information, so that it becomes easier even for the CIPC. If anyone from outside comes and want to claim, they want to file a patent, we can go to that database and check, are they disclosing the origins of that particular compound or the plant that they've been using to extract certain components. So all these government entities are working closely together to ensure that there is that protection. And all of that has, the policies and the legal frameworks that are coming from the Department of Science and Innovation, Environmental Affairs, as well as the DTIC. I hope you are covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I have my own questions. unless if there are some hands from the floor. But before I ask my questions, I wanted to just intervene a little bit and say that as a Department of Science and Innovation, our model says that once a knowledge holder comes to see a researcher, from that day on, there has to be these agreements. We bind the researcher and the knowledge holder in terms of this access and benefit sharing. We don't wait when there is a product. These agreements need to be sorted out even before we start. Then talking to what's in it for the holders, part of the agreement that we have with the scientists and the holders is that, you know, the work that Prof was presenting, the healer is already using this medicine in the community, right? So our model is that regardless of whether he will find something interesting, our model is that from day one, there must be an agreement with the healer that we look for land, maybe through the tribal authority or municipality, so that we start growing these things for sustainability. Then we put them through the Coach Lab program for them to be entrepreneurs, so that if we pull out because the project didn't, the experiments didn't go the way we wanted, you already are leaving people with something on the ground, because these things, whether our research works or not, these things are being used in the communities anyway. So like this, it is empowering from day one. That is our model within the department. Anyway, I have got a question for each one of you. For Professor Tang, what is it that you can advise us on the African continent in terms of certain things, certain interventions that I think are required for us to reach the levels that you have reached? What is it that you can advise us in terms of building universities and colleges where we teach these knowledge systems, outside things that may be more esoteric and spiritual, but the knowledge that you also as Chinese, you managed to pull out and left the esoteric spiritual knowledges with the temples. What can you advise us in this case in terms of universities? But also, you also managed to take away, well, not really take away, but really it's no longer the knowledge that rests only with the shifus in the temples and the traditional healing spaces. Now you were sharing with us that you've got over 600,000. You know, your clinics are more than our own population here in South Africa. Meaning that if I was in China, if South Africa was in China, each one of us will have our own clinic, and even more, including hospitals at tertiary level. What is it that you can advise us in terms of these two issues? What can we do to reach these levels? So that's one for yourself, Prof. Tang. And for Prof. Galeni, I think looking into one of the questions that came from my sister over there is that we have been used as guinea pigs all these years as Africans. We've been used as guinea pigs to run experiments for mainly European companies. And at the end of the day, sometimes we get told that, as we saw in the presentation at the plenary, and sometimes we get told that, well, the drugs that were developed do not really work very well with us because of our own genetic makeup. How can we counter this as Africans? But also, how can we do what you're doing throughout the African continent? Because we're not seeing what you're doing throughout the African continent. Like a Pan-African model. And to Dr. Oboko, we're doing well in terms, I would say we're getting somewhere in terms of supporting small, medium enterprises, and we get these conversations that, oh, it's SMMEs that really create jobs and everything. But when we look into other countries, even in terms of allopathic medicines, when we look into China, India, Korea, they moved beyond just supporting small, medium enterprises in terms of medicines and food product development and commercialization. How can we expand what you're doing at the Innovation Hub? You are a Gauteng organization, and already we're strangling you to support everyone else, in the country. But how can we expand the Coach Lab bioentrepreneurship program to other provinces, especially to students, so that they don't graduate, but they don't even know how to create jobs? So that's one. But secondly, how can we upscale small, medium enterprises into big industries? Because for us really to be leaders, as the bioeconomy strategy said, we said we want to be number 3 in the world, because we've got all these natural resources and all this capacity of young scientists that are qualified, but we can manufacture these things. We have demonstrated that we can manufacture. How can we do that? So these are the questions that I have from my side. Maybe we can start with Professor Tang as an advice to us, Prof.
Thank you, Professor Chabalal. I think the first question, we are talking about the education and also about the university and colleges. And I do think our traditional South Africa medicine knowledge is very important. But the first thing, as you mentioned, we should very carefully investigate and organize and systematize the knowledge instead of father to son, parents to offsprings. I think we should have some very general in common traditional knowledge framework or system. Only after that we can build up education, let's say a small or college or university. So I mean, from my personal understanding, the priority should be we should support scientists, healers, investigators to analysis and make our traditional South African knowledge as a system. This is and only after that we can start open a traditional medicine college. And the other thing, I think, although the traditional medicine knowledge from other countries like China, India, or other countries, we can share experience, but I mean, we should build up our unique traditional South Africa traditional medicine knowledge system. This is for your first question. The second question, I think we should encourage, because as I understand, the healers, they actually they are not profitable, and if you if as a government, if you can encourage the healers, let's say give them some subsidies, support them to serve the village, serve the community, and I mean the healers clinic, they need more support from the government financially, and also very importantly, the healers, they may need some very basic and a very fundamental medical training program. So only after that, I think we can make our healers clinic more efficient, then develop this clinic, this healers unit to small clinic, from small clinic to a little comprehensive clinic. That's my understanding.
Galeni?
Yes, thank you, Professor. That's my understanding.
think the drug development culture in Africa has not taken root. I think in part due to colonialism, and in a sense, because what will stop us being guinea pigs is when our drug producing machinery is in place to do more clinical trials from locally produced products. So that's the first challenge that we have. Professor Matshabisa, sitting at the back there, chairs a WHO expert committee on traditional medicines for COVID. And the work that committee is doing, other than developing protocols for clinical trials and other tools to assist countries during COVID, but it's been visiting countries to assess their capacity to conduct clinical trials, preclinical studies, and manufacturing of these traditional medicines. And what it's establishing is the fact that where capacity may not exist in one country, there can be multi-country, collaboration or multi-center studies or multi-country studies. Because one of the issues in Africa was that their COVID numbers were low. So in terms of doing a clinical trial, you are only located in your own hospital or space, and the numbers are dropping fast. You ended up not being able to recruit enough patients for the study, but that committee now is facilitating that you can now work across borders, be able to recruit more patients to have studies, and it also enhances, facilitates those products being registered in more than one country once the studies have been successful. So that's part of its work that is already started. I think COVID, in a way, has been a blessing in that sense to us. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obok.
No, thanks, Dr. Shabalala. I think there's quite a number of questions that you have asked, which are very key to this discussion. How do we take the IKS agenda going forward? How do we expand the programs that we have started? And especially looking at the students. And I'm happy that this year we'll be launching a bachelor through the PICS. I know that 3 universities are currently offering the Bachelor of IKS. And through our collaboration now with the Department of Science and Innovation, we'll be launching a Coach Lab program to train our students, how to become entrepreneurs. And then they will participate with us at the Innovation Hub. So I'm looking forward to that engagement. And please, if there are students from the universities, we're starting with the University of Venda, Northwest University so far, just to pilot. And of course, it will be expanded, nationally. Yes, we are a provincial department or an agency at the provincial level, but as I indicated in my presentation, we work throughout the country. We have a number of programs, for example, the Gauteng Accelerator Program. Some of you may be knowing about it, where it is, we are working in collaboration with various universities throughout the country to ensure that our students, our researchers, our scientists can participate, can come up with innovative ideas, and we're able to incubate them. But this is after they have developed some prototype, and we are then we look and adjudicate those innovations to see whether they are novel, there's an inventive step, so that they can get maximum support. So the questions that you have asked about, how to elevate this, and upskill our SMEs to be, in the industry itself, the IKS, and wanting to be number 3 in the world. And I think we are drawing lessons really from all these countries that we've mentioned, India, China, South Korea, and Brazil. Currently, as South Africa, of course, looking at our rich biodiversity, we are ranked number 3 in the whole world. But in terms of exploiting that natural, our resources, our biodiversity, I think we're coming short of that. So I believe that through these kind of programs that we have with the innovation, with the Department of Science and Innovation and all the other key government departments, we'll be able to, make some headways. But I think what we need as well is public-private partnerships. I think that is something that we are lacking in terms of strengthening and ensuring that we leverage from the expertise of the private sector. As government, we cannot do it on our own. We need the private sector, and I think it's up to us, our policies, how do they really incentivize, how do they ensure that we attract the private sector as a key partner in our development agenda as South Africa. And I think one of the challenges as government as well is our silo working mentality. DSI, you'll have your mandate, which does not speak to Department of Trade and Industry, and there's duplication that you'll find in all of that, because all of these instruments and investment, we have limited budgets. We are under financial constraints, but we're all sort of supporting the same aspirations, to grow the economy. Maybe we need to start working smart as government to start with. And these are conversations that needs to take place at the highest level where policy is being developed and approved so that the little investment that we have can make an impact. We know, as you alluded earlier, that our SMMEs are the backbone for economic development. If the Department of Small Business Development has a certain budget, Department of Science and Innovation has a certain budget, as well as DTIC, they're all talking to, how do we grow economy? How do we grow, and develop industrialists, black industrialists? So how then are we not working together to ensure that the little we have, we can maximize and put all in one kitty? For example, within the Innovation Hub, as you all know, we don't have the budget. We come and we apply just like anybody else to the DSI, but we're a government entity. So if we have an implementer that is making some inroads, why don't we really be supported so that we can really have more meaningful and impactful, development of our SMMEs? So it's high time. Yes, we've been having this conversation. A lot has been written from NACI, which is the National Advisory Council on Innovation, from the DSI, but somehow in terms of implementation, we are failing. So I think we can't be repeating this. It's 25 years now down the line, and still we're not going anywhere as a country. And we have good partners, as you've said, with China. Some of these best practices are there. How have they made sure that now they've got clinics which are specific and specializes in traditional medicine? So how will we get there if we are all working in silos? So those are some of the solutions and contributions to this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gogo Kabashe, we left with 5 minutes, so at least we have a little bit of time while she's still walking to the mic. Remember to come back to this room at 2 o'clock. We have 2 other sessions after lunch. Please go ahead, Gogo Kabashe.
Afternoon. I actually was trying to keep quiet, but Gwalil. Firstly, I must say to Prof in China that, when you spoke about the support for healers to serve the community, I could hear Ukoko Pepsile shouting at ye. I could really hear her, because that's one of the things Ankh said, we should come with solutions. I really think that, and not taking away from what we're going to be talking about later, this integration about IKS is not a thing floating somewhere. It's vested in our communities, in our homes, and in ourselves. And my worry is always that we take such a Western reductionist approach to it. And so even the interventions and the solutions, my body cringes when I hear about what's in it for the healers, not because it's a wrong question, but maybe we're asking it in such a Ubuntu-less way that it talks about an I. Giumelapi, I am not an I am a we. And that we, not only my family, and I keep saying this and I'll keep on saying it, Uti, it's a whole lineage that is beyond my bloodline, that includes the community. So we must start also owning that if we are in Africa and we are building African solutions, can we also start being brave and bold enough to start asking ourselves, Uguti, in our Africanness, how do we commercialize? In our Africanness, how do we commodify culture? Because that's exactly what we are talking about. You know, let me use that hard word. Because that's what it is that, and if we are not going to take care of that base and the foundation, which unfortunately we are not. In South Africa, we are not. I do work on the continent in traditional medicine, and we really are not, because it's almost as if we want to usurp it out of its context and then run with it. But if we don't start taking the step back, which says, okay, for me, success looks like seeing the children of healers in your BIKS, the children born with the gift in the programs, Prof, that you are running. I had the misfortune of being in my coach lab group. There was a young lady who was born of a healer. She's a grandchild. So she took the remedy and she brought it to the university. My problem with it was that it was then treated as without the context of umuthi kamkhulu lo. Hayi owakhe. Granted, grandpa's gone a long time ago, but the book did not start with her. But I don't know if we're having those deep enough conversations. So success for me is to be able to see, because unfortunately our kids with the gifts, they get shunned in schools where they're not supported. So somebody who has, and it's a gift, whether you all like it or not. Anka, I heard you use the word esoteric. Oh my goodness. It's there. It's how we see. It's how our people, just because science does not understand how we transmit memory, it's there. So when our children who come with our gifts, who have the dreams of dreaming, who see the remedies, are not also supported through school so that they make it to university. Prof wants a matric certificate with physics and maths in there. And yet each and every day we see healers graduating. What is the career track of bringing those traditional scientists, those knowledge holders into this preserve, this elite? Because it is an elite. I've gone completely off track with what I wanted to say. My apologies. But all I was saying is, Prof.
Come back.
I'm coming back. I really think that this is something that says, how do we support the clinics emakhaya? Because people are going there every day. How do we start building them and bringing them into the network of healthcare? We're not an other. We are the, because when all else has, the fact that people still come to us each and every day means that this Western model of the Department of Health, that it supports 100% and zero for us, is not working. People get thrown out of hospitals because they are dying. We know how to look after the dying. Not only them, but the family. Nobody supports us. We feed our patients and their families because there's poverty in this country. And so for me, that is the one that I thought, if I don't get up and say, I love that. But the other one is that this thing about China and India have got something we don't have. So the competition in China on commercial and India on commercial medicine, and I'm speaking as a person with little knowledge, so I may lie, is that they have, in systematizing, they've gathered all the knowledge that is community knowledge, and anyone can actually make that medicine, and they compete on brand. Then when you innovate on that, then that jump is made. If we also are not investing in that, we're just going to create chaos further down the line. Because unfortunately, as I keep on saying, our knowledge is communal. It really is communal. And none of you comes back to us and comes and markets these products back to us. All it does is that it keeps me entrenched in making sure that I make my products when actually they are the products that I could be supporting so that we build the thing forward. And lastly, which is the real reason I stood up, is that, we say we've got partners, and yet Prof. Galeni said we struggle to find people for the trials on COVID. But Africa was not the only continent. where there was COVID. In fact, we were the ones that weren't decimated. Why are we always get called for clinical trials for all other people. When is the call going to be the other way? That Africa says, world, we need participants to our clinical trials. Prof, in China, you are here. Why are these partnerships only in certain areas but not in the real deep and the meat? You can't be sitting there saying we are struggling to find money for clinical trials which are expensive. I'll go to a pharmacy now, I'll find traditional medicines from all over the world. At which point am I going to walk into China and find an African traditional medicine if we are not also getting our clinical trials and doing the trials there? For me, that's the challenge that I actually stood up to say. It cannot be a partnership if there are other things that we partner on and others we don't. I was in South Korea at a university and walked past, and there was pictures of Ilabatega and Sutherlandia, and there was another one because I was like, oh, wow. And our healers say my knowledge is secret. Here it is in a Korean university. But if I come and say I want to do clinical trials on that plant in those countries, are the doors open? Yeah, well.
Thank you so much. Wonderful questions which we should be asking in settings like this. At the same time, these questions need answers. There is no one who's going to give us answers or solutions. There is an artist called LKJ. Rasigan knows him. He says that this is the age of science and technology, but some of us deal with antiquity, with old things. However, they can't make decision when it comes to our rights. No one should make a decision when it comes to something that belongs to us, including everything that Go Kabashe is saying. The time for us to cry and complain is done. We need to start working, and all of us. We can't even point at government, because government. I work for government. Government have failed in doing some of these things, but it is the people on the ground that makes things happen. It is the students that haven't been contaminated by the old systems. So all I'm saying is that we need to have these conversations, but we need to have strong suggestions and solutions that are practical and they can be implemented on the ground. And those are the conversations of the next session at 2:00. And some of the latter aspect of what Dr. Gabashe said will be the issues that we'll discuss at session 3 at 15:15. So you come back at 2:00 to 3:00, then we'll break, and then you come back at 3:15, where we talk about how do we implement this. So thank you so much for lending us your ears. And again, thank you so much for Professor Tang, Professor Kaleni, Dr. Oboko. We really appreciate your participation. Thank you so much. We'll see you later.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
So I've selected 9.